Hello and welcome back to Football League World TV. We've got the weekend review show this afternoon even, with Marcus and Ben joining me. Marcus, how are you getting on?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Alfie. High drama in the three tiers as always this weekend, so happy to be on to sift through some of it.
Absolutely, plenty to get stuck into. Ben, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, good afternoon at Deepdale, even though it's absolutely freezing and the cold weather's not left the north. No surprise there, but yeah, it was a pretty enjoyable weekend.
No, I'm absolutely with you there. Freezing up north this weekend. Right, we'll get straight stuck into it with the Championship. First on the agenda is Bournemouth 2, Coventry City 2. Late goals from Matty Godden and Todd Kane. Cancelled out Jaden Anthony and Phil Billing goals. Great comeback from Coventry here from 2-0 down at Bournemouth to secure a point. We'll start with the Sky Blues. Ben, really good moment for Coventry, this, isn't it? Is it a sign of a side that almost seems destined for the playoffs, given the fight that's on show here?
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, obviously the red card by Lerma probably helped a little bit. I know it was a clear Stonewall red, but I think when you get that kind of assistance in the last 20 minutes, it can only help. Some teams obviously won't punish a good team like Bournemouth when they've got an extra man, but Coventry obviously had enough in the locker to punish that man advantage. I'm not sure Todd Kane meant that goal to equalise it. Looked like a very fortunate cross ending up in the back of the net. But they had the luck on the side with that one, and it was a good moment to give the fans a bit of a limbs moment in stoppage time. They've just got a good squad, Coventry. They've got players who can come off the bench and make a difference, and exciting players like O'Hare, whilst he didn't score, they can serve it up to the top teams in the Championship. And I just think results like this proved it might be a bit closer than not just this result as well. Other results over the course of this week prove that the Championship's probably a little bit closer than people think in terms of quality between the top and bottom. And Coventry are one of those teams that don't look out of place being in the playoffs at the minute.
Absolutely. I don't think there's going to be many sides go to Bournemouth and come from 2-0 down and get a result. As for Bournemouth, they're without a winning 3 now, which is slightly concerning for Scott Parker's side. Marcus, how thankful do you think Bournemouth are that West Brom are stumbling in third as well?
I think it depends the way you look at it. You could see that the platform that Bournemouth really built at the start of this season to put them on such a high pedestal for the likes of West Brom to try and chase. But obviously in the last few weeks with West Brom failing to win a game as well as the Cherries, it has helped them. But I wouldn't say that they've been fortunate. I think it's two individual errors really to not see through the 2-goal lead in this game. I think Lerma is probably the most blatant red card I've seen in a while. It was baffling to see the Bournemouth players protesting it. And then I'm not sure what Travers is really doing for the second goal. I know it's a cross that goes in, but usually for that to happen, it's got to be a goal that sort of sails over the keeper and into the top corner, which that didn't even really happen. It sort of goes in at the middle of the goal, maybe a bit lower. I can only assume he sort of slipped as he's trying to backpedal to catch the cross. So I don't think Scott Parker should be too frustrated. Coventry are a really good side. And for large periods of the game, Bournemouth were looking very comfortable. Jaden Anthony, the main man, really. 2 excellent crosses, one maybe a little bit fortunate to go in, obviously, but what a player he's been this season. I think even though it's frustrating to have 2 points snatched away from you at the death like that, it was still a decent performance that just unravelled in quite an unlucky way towards the back end.
Absolutely. Still a decent lead for Bournemouth over third place at the minute, so maybe not too much cause for concern for Parker. If you were at an EFL game this weekend, get yourselves in the comments and let us know. Let us know your thoughts on your team or any other team that we're mentioning. Elsewhere in the Championship on Saturday, Hull City 2, Millwall 1. George Honeyman and Ryan Longman with the goals for the Tigers. It's now 4 wins on the trot for Grant McCann's side. McCann was under a little bit of pressure earlier in the season. Ben, have Hull justified sticking with McCann, do you feel, after this little recent burst of victories?
I think so, yeah. And you've got to remember with the takeover, it's supposed to be happening the next few weeks, and the rumours about the Illicarly wanting his own man. It shows the players are playing for McCann. They were quite poor in the the last few months. It's a long run of poor results, but you've got to give them credit for getting out of that and getting 4 wins in a row against a few difficult teams to beat. I think I was pretty scathing in September, saying I thought they done poor business. Obviously, they were restricted in the transfer window with an embargo, meaning they couldn't sign anyone on transfer fees, which probably restricted them to what they could bring in quality wise. But they're showing they've got enough at the minute to, go on a bit of a run. And I think they do have to be looking up and not down at the minute, because you've got the likes of Keane, Lewis Potter, and Jacob Greaves, 2 players who are on the up and making a difference. I think Greaves put the cross in for Hull's first goal. You don't expect to see him that far forward providing assists, but yeah, they're beating a Millwall team who are notoriously difficult to beat, not just at home but on the road as well. It's a good sign, and I think McCann's earned himself another few months at least in the job, and I think Ilya Corley, when he does take over, will be impressed at what he's seen in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'll stick with you here, Ben. It's 5 points clear of Peterborough, who occupy the final place in the relegation zone in the Championship now. There's still a long way to go this season and plenty of twists and turns, would imagine. But are you backing Hull to stay up from the position that they're in at the minute?
I think so, yeah. I think the momentum they've got now, and I think they'll get a bit more momentum once this takeover goes through. They could strengthen in January with a few more extra bodies, which they'll probably need for the second half of the season. And I think it'll just help getting the fans back on side as well, because obviously there's been a lot of, tension over the years between the Allams and the Hull City fans. And with a new man coming in, I think that kind of positivity off the pitch will help the players as well. And it perhaps already is. They might be able to, sense the kind of good atmosphere coming back, and that's transferring itself onto the pitch. So I can, see him going on maybe a little bit of a run. I don't know how long they'll go unbeaten for, but I can definitely see him. They beat, obviously, like the likes of Middlesbrough earlier in the season as well. So they've definitely got quality, and I think there's a few worse teams than Hull in the Championship. And I guess you see what happens in January and see who they bring in. But I think from what we've seen in the last few weeks, I think they should be able to have enough to stay up.
Comment in from Liam on YouTube. Hats off to Grant McCann, doing well. I mean, loads of fan backlash. I think we can all agree on that. As for Millwall, Marcus, it's 4 without a win now for Gary Rowett's side. They've drawn the previous 3 games, but draws aren't really good enough if you don't capitalise on points there with victories against sides like Hull, are they?
Yeah, it's a bit of a thankless task, I think, for Gary Rowett at the moment. He's struggling to find that balance between how defensive and how attacking to try and be for Millwall. Obviously, they're in a position where a good run could see them break into the playoff places, which we've seen in the previous few years. So I think Rowett is desperate not to miss out on that opportunity yet again, but is maybe going too far the other way, which is making them less solid defensively. At Hull, a team threatened by relegation, you'd imagine Millwall would go in fancying their chances, and Rowett has put in Ojo, Afobe, Bradshaw and Jed Wallace all from the start, Ojo playing at left wing back. So he has shown at least the ambition to try and take Millwall to that next level, but it's ended up backfiring quite a bit. I think they were pretty poor defensively for Ryan Longman's winner. I think they've really switched off for that goal. So it's going to be frustrating for Rowett, and I think he's still sort of stumbling, trying to find the right balance that's going to keep them as solid defensively as they had been, but a little bit more productive going forward. I think he'll definitely be looking at a few targets in the January transfer window that can aid that process. But yeah, overall, I'm not concerned about Millwall. I think Afobe's really improved in the last few weeks. And if they can stay in sort of touching distance of the playoff places, if they can have a good January window, I would probably expect Jed Wallace to stay until the end of the season. Then they should still be there or thereabouts.
Elsewhere in the Championship, I was at Huddersfield for Middlesbrough's 2-1 victory over Huddersfield Town. Duncan Watmore with a really well-taken brace there. It was a really good Middlesbrough performance, actually, at the John Smith Stadium. They pressed really well out of possession. The wing-backs played high and wide, just like we've seen from Chris Wilder's Sheffield United side previously. The centre-backs pushed forward, as we know Wilder's centre-backs like to do. Johnny Howson had a superb game in the midfield, and Watmore, as I've mentioned already, scored 2 really, really good goals. Ben, this was a good afternoon for Chris Wilder, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, his effect is already, taking shape. I don't think the first 2 games he had, whilst he wouldn't have got the results he wanted, 1 point in out of a possible 6. I think the performances were, good enough. They certainly, for what I saw, battered PNE for the most part before, losing. I think most impressive about the result was Matt Crook's assist for the second goal. It was like a no-look kind of lob over the defence. It really impressed me. Listen, Wilder's got a talented squad at his disposal. I think he'll be backed in January if he needs to be. I know they spent a little bit of money on the Warnock in the summer. I don't know how many of those were his signings. But I think Wilder will want to bring in a few new defenders, to suit his kind of overlapping centre-back system. Because I think a few of the players that he's got now, I think they're just lacking a little bit at the back in terms of that respect. But I think they've got enough going forward to, make a difference against, teams like Huddersfield who, I think we'll speak about in a minute, but they had a good start to the season. But, the results kind of, going a little bit inconsistent, but they certainly, put them to the sword on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my gut feeling coming away from the game was some of those players in that Middlesbrough squad are really, really going to suit what Chris Wilder wants to do and his style of play. Some of them are absolutely tailor-made for it. And my personal feeling is with Wilder that he will eventually get it right at Middlesbrough. I'm not saying this season, but in future seasons, I think he will end up taking them back to the Premier League if everything falls into place. Marcus, would you agree with that?
I would have to, yeah. I think when you look at the side that he put together with Sheffield United, which is his only sort of previous comparable job in management, and the amount of financial backing he's probably going to get at Middlesbrough will be significantly more to what he had at Sheffield United. So you'd think that with more resources at his disposal, he'd be able to produce a squad that would be at least as good or even better than the one that he had at Sheffield United and go on to achieve what he did there. It's it's a really big club. Obviously, as Ben mentioned, they did show ambition in the summer, spending big money on the likes of Piero. So if Wilder can sort of get into Kieran Scott and sort of persuade him to give similar amounts of money to his sort of style of recruitment, then they should definitely reap the rewards in the future. It'll be very tough this season. I wouldn't rule out them getting in the playoffs, but they've got a way to go in that regard. But definitely looking forward to the next 2 to 3 years, depending on what sides come down from the Premier League. Of course, I think Middlesbrough should definitely be in and around the top 6 and consistent playoff contenders.
Absolutely. A good afternoon for Middlesbrough, but not so for Huddersfield. This was a back-to-back defeat now in the Championship, and for me, this was their worst performance since the 5-1 defeat to Fulham earlier in the season. Of course, we saw the wheels completely fall off after a promising start last season under Carlos Corberán, and I think Huddersfield only won 3 times after December 29th last year. Ben, do you feel like Huddersfield just need to be wary that the wheels don't completely fall off again this season?
I think it might be a little bit too early to say that. I mean, obviously, you said at the end of December last season, it started to fall off. I think we can, after those Christmas games, I think we can have a good picture of where they might be. But I think one thing you've got to say is the squad probably does need freshening up in January, especially up front. They brought Odebeko in the summer from West Ham. He's not really had much game time, and Jordan Rhodes has been injured. I can't see him really spending in January. I think we all know about the issues that Phil Hodgkinson's had with other companies in recent times. I don't know how that'll affect the football club. I know they said it'll be, business as usual. Whether that happens remains to be seen. They didn't spend much in the summer, and I can, unfortunately for the fans, see the same happening again. If Corberán can keep them in a playoff mix in the final few months of the season, I think he'll have done a fantastic job, but I just don't think they'll be in and around there, by March time, but I don't think they're going to be, troubled by relegation.
Now, moving over to Sunday, Sheffield United 2, Bristol City 0. I was there at Bramall Lane again, fighting the snow. Goals from Ryan Brewster and Billy Sharp secured Paul Heckingbottom his first victory on his first fixture in charge since taking permanent charge at Bramall Lane. Ryan Brewster is somebody that I want to discuss. Brewster had a pretty good hour or so in the attack. Having seen Chris Wilder and Slavisa Jokanovic not really get the best out of the England under-21 international, Marcus, do you think Heckingbottom can be the manager to get him going?
I think a bit of a small sample size to start thinking about that properly, but one goal from one game is very impressive. As a match as a whole, it couldn't have really gone better for Paul Heckingbottom. Obviously, we saw how effective Ryan Brewster was in that loan spell at Swansea City at the second half of 2019-20 season. So we know that he can be prolific at this level, and obviously his high reputation as a youth player with England and Liverpool suggests that there definitely is a player of the talent that should be at the top end of the Championship in there. Whether Paul Heckingbottom is the man to bring it out of him, I'm not sure yet. I mean, as long as he can have people supplying the kind of chances to him, and he can sort of link up effectively with the likes of Gibbs, White and McGoldrick as he did on Sunday, then I think he could definitely continue to push on. I think he seems a bit like a confidence player at the moment. When things aren't going too well, he doesn't seem to be able to really perform for the side. But it's a fresh slate now under Heckingbottom. I think that'll definitely give him a new impetus, because it did seem like he was quite out of favour at times under Jukanovic. So it's an opportunity for him to demonstrate that he should be the man to lead the line consistently for the Blades.
There was plenty of good performances within the Sheffield United 11, I felt, but the standout for me was Morgan Gibbs-White. He's on loan at Bramall Lane from Wolves, and I think in a difficult start to the season, he has stood out. Ben, do you think that this is the last time we're going to see him in the AFL before he gets a proper crack at the Premier League next year?
Probably. He's definitely a very classy player. He started showing it at Swansea before he got injured in his loan spell last year. And I think he got a few chances at Wolves under Nuno, but not enough to make him a cemented first team player. I know he's got a lot of competition in that central midfield role at Molineux, but I think he's shown enough now in the Championship to prove that he's worthy of having a space in that squad and getting game time in the Premier League, whether it's Wolves or a loan to another Premier League club next season. I can't see him in the Championship again. He's just got that touch of class, but there's a lot of players in the Championship that you could say should be in the Premier League, but they're contracted permanently to Championship clubs, not loanees. So I can see Gibbs White being a fixture at Wolves next season.
Yep. As for Bristol City, I thought they were really, really poor yesterday, and as good as Sheffield United were, it is worth noting that Nigel Pearson's side weren't at the races at all. They're 18th in the table at the minute with just one victory in 5. Marcus, do you feel that the Robins need to be looking over the shoulder and wary of what's going on below them in the table at this moment in time?
I think they definitely would a lot more if it wasn't for the points deductions, which is an obvious thing to say. But I think we've definitely sort of bumped up Bristol City in our estimation of them and our lack of concern towards their Championship status this season because of what's happened to Derby and Reading, sort of inflating their league position a little bit. They are a relegation battling side, but of course they're likely to finish 2 places higher that they possibly would have done if Derby and Reading hadn't had points deductions. So I don't expect them to be embroiled in a relegation battle towards the end of the season. Barnsley and Peterborough have been pretty woeful this season as well. So whether they're going to compete against the drop remains to be seen. If they don't, then obviously the likes of Bristol City will have nothing to worry about. But it is very concerning. When Nigel Pearson got the job on a permanent basis in the summer, there was talk of a 3-year plan to get Bristol City to the Premier League. Well, that looks a long way off at the moment. They've sort of been on a bit of a downhill spiral since Lee Johnson left the club, and it doesn't look like that decline has slowed off at all under Pearson. Sheffield United were good, but I agree. Bristol City did not make it difficult for them at all. And it's kind of a season where they're probably going to stay up, but go into the summer more concerned than they were going into this season.
Before we move down into League One, we've had a comment in from Sam. What do you think the score will be tonight between Derby and Queen's Park Rangers, of course, taking each other on into the Championship on Monday evening? Marcus, put you on the spot first. Where do you think the points are going?
I'm going low scoring. I do think QPR could probably nick it with the incentive that they could rise to 3rd place with a victory, but Derby have just been very hard to beat consistently, so I'll go over 1-1 draw.
And what about you, Ben?
I was going to say the same, but I don't want to copy. So I'm going to go for a narrow with the momentum you've got. Derby win 2-1, I think.
Ooh, bold call there. Right, next up, League One. First League One game we're going to look back on is Wigan's 2-1 win at Plymouth. A late Callum Lang goal in the last minute, winning the points for the Latics. Wigan are up to second in the League One table now, and there was chaos amongst their fans as Lang struck the winning goal. How big's this win in the context of the season, Ben?
I think it's massive, you know. It was a weekend where quite a few of the top teams were playing each other, and to win against a promotion rival and cement that top 2 spot for now. And, you know, especially after the news of what happened to Charlie Wyke in the week, I think it'll have been a big pickup for the squad and the fans all concerned at Wigan. They've quite clearly got a good squad for League One after, you know, some decent investment by the new owners in the summer. So they're where a lot of people would expect them to be after the summer spending in that top 2 race near the halfway point. And, you know, I can't see them stopping anytime soon. They've not really had many poor results so far this season. And you've got to remember, they've got kind of a novice manager as well, with Liam Richardson being in charge. So I think for what they've got and the manager you've got, I think it's a very good time to be a Wigan fan with the results they're getting. And, you know, it doesn't look like they're going to be stopping anytime soon.
As Ben mentioned, there's some concerning news coming out of the Wigan training ground with regard to Charlie Wyke this week. Everybody at Football League World wishes Charlie the best in his recovery, and we hope to see him back out on the pitch soon. As for Plymouth, Marcus, it's 3 defeats on the spin now. Do you feel that they're struggling to mix it with the big hitters that are in League One and in the League One sort of promotion race at the minute?
Obviously, they were top of the league before this run started, so I think that maybe has sort of compounded maybe a bit of more of a negative feeling. But it has been a lot of really tricky games, and they've got even more of a tough run coming up with more sides in and around the automatics and the playoff places. Whether they're struggling to mix it, I'm not so sure. I think there have been some defensive errors creeping into their game, which maybe stopped them sort of pushing on last season and had them dragged down the table, which was what Ryan Lowe had been able to sort of shore up at the start of this season. You know, we know that the Plymouth have always been very good going forward since they got promoted from League Two. So that's stayed the same. I don't know, it's interesting because they have looked a side that's been able to cope with some of the better teams in the league. You know, they've beaten Sheffield Wednesday 3-0 twice, beaten Ipswich. So I wouldn't say they're definitely struggling, but you know, Wigan are a great side, and I'd say it's a tough run of fixtures in a congested period as well. So I wouldn't be writing off Ryan Lowe's men at all. I think they can definitely come out the other side of this. But I think credit's got to go to Wigan. It's an outstanding win and a great week, because they were 2-0 down, and then in midweek at Cambridge United scored goals in the 84th and 87th minute to snatch a point, and then obviously Callum Lang's goal in the 90th minute here. So they've really sort of grabbed 3 extra points from the closing exchanges. Speaks to the spirit that Liam Richardson's clearly instilled in the squad. So I think it's more credit to Wigan, and I think Plymouth will bounce back.
Absolutely. We've had a comment in from Harry. I could see the top 2 in League One staying as it is. Rotherham and Wigan, of course, taking up those 2 places in the table. Elsewhere in League One, MK Dons with a 4-0 victory at Morecambe. Matt O'Reilly with a brace amongst the goals. An expected win, maybe given where MK are in the table and where Morecambe are in the table. But this was pretty emphatic from MK, and a good response to a late defeat at Sheffield Wednesday in the week. Ben, would you agree that it was a good sort of reaction from MK?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's one you might have expected to happen. You know, I think Morecambe have I know they got a draw against Charlton, and I think they beat Fleetwood as well with that ridiculous Cole Stockton goal. But before that, the run of form was quite a few losses, and, you know, a team like Milton Keynes Dons are not going to, you know, let up. And I think they've kept kind of a similar style under Liam Manning to what they had under Russell Martin, with very similar players, and I think they're clearly thriving for the most part. You know, they've got one of the most exciting players in the league in Scott Twine. You know, Max Watters is scoring, and Matt O'Reilly's, you know, someone who goes under the radar. I think he's very highly rated at Fulham before leaving, and he's definitely one of the better midfielders in League One. We've definitely got the makings of a promotion chasing side, and I think he's very much stamped the credentials on that against obviously a team you expect to be down there in the league. But, you know, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and to do it in the way they did was pretty good.
Absolutely, and they're into the top 6 now. They've moved above Sheffield Wednesday actually in the table. Marcus, are you expecting them to stay there?
I am, yeah. I'm not sure if they'll definitely finish in the top six, but I think they'll be in the race right until the end of the season. It's such a fluid formation that Liam Manning's been able to implement, with Matt O'Reilly obviously going into sort of advanced areas from midfield and being able to score the goals that he has. He's a class above at this level for me. And when you look at the likes of Scott Twine, Moisa and O'Reilly, it's going to be really tough to cope with all three of them at once, and the depth that, of course, they've got in attacking areas. So yeah, I fully expect them, MK and Oxford, to be there in the race for the long haul around some of the bigger clubs in the division, the likes of Ipswich, probably going to push up into those top six places at some point in this season. And just one last thing on this game. If you want to see the worst knee slide of the weekend, Harry Darling's third goal for MK, a header from a corner, a bit of a catastrophe there. I hope his knees are all right from that collision. But yeah, MK for me, definitely in the top six race right until the end of the season.
Nice little plug there for a Twitter video for Football League World, I think, Marcus. Right, next up, League Two. We're going to start with the league leaders, Forest Green Rovers. They were 2-0 winners against Bristol Rovers. Jamil Matt with a brace to seal a West Country derby victory. It's looking pretty good for Forest Green at the top of League Two, a 6-point lead with a game in hand. Marcus making short work of the division, aren't they, so far?
Absolutely, yeah. Credit to Rob Edwards in his first job at the level. I think there was a lot of different candidates that we thought could go on to finish in the top three automatic promotion places in League Two this season, but Forest Green clearly the front runners. Obviously, Jamil Matt picking up a brace in this game. He's showing that at 32 years old, he's really improved his all-round game with experience, and with 10 goals and 6 assists this season, to go with what he contributes in his hold-up play and just occupying defences in the fourth tier just shows what a great asset he is to the side. Obviously, it's not just Matt. There's players all over the pitch, and particularly going forward, they do really look elite for League Two level. And even though it was only 2-0, it was very comfortable. The result was never in doubt in this match.
Their opponents, Bristol Rovers, they're 7 points adrift of the playoffs and very much in mid-table at the minute. League Two is a notoriously tight division come the end of the campaign. Ben, they're going to have to start picking up soon, aren't they, if they're going to break into the top 7?
Yeah, I think they need to pick up form soon, but I think they definitely got on paper the squad to do so. It's just about whether the management can get the best out of them. I think does Joey Barton have the nous about him to do it? I'm not sure. I know he did get Fleetwood into the playoffs, but his stock's probably kind of dropped a little bit. He's definitely not getting the best out of this squad at the minute. At Bristol Rovers, they've won one in the last 5 league games, and I think they were in a lower position a few months ago. They've got some kind of form back in the last few months, but it's kind of dropped off again. If December doesn't bring a few more wins and they're still, languishing in the the bottom third of the table, then you've got to think that the board might end up replacing Barton. It might be an expensive job to do so, but his job definitely might be in danger if they don't start picking up a few wins and getting themselves up the table.
Absolutely, plenty to weigh up at Bristol Rovers. Elsewhere in the division, a battling point for bottom club Scunthorpe. They drew 1-1 with Bradford City. Start with Bradford. It's no win in 5 for Derek Adams' side, and struggling against League Two's worst side according to the table this weekend. Ben, I'll stick with you. What's going on at Bradford at the moment?
No idea. They've got a good squad for League Two. Plucked a promotion-winning manager who's supposed to get the best out of them. Of course, Andy Cook being injured, for a month, it won't be helpful. And you've got to assess the options you've got up front to replace him. Theo Robinson's been about a bit, being at a lot of clubs. Is he good enough for a promotion chasing League Two side? You've got to question that. I think you've got Carl and Lavery as well, who's he was once a decent player at Sheffield Wednesday, but he's not exactly been prolific over the last few years. So Cook's absence will be a big one, but they've definitely got players around those kind of wide attacking areas who can make a difference. And, they would have expected to go to Scunthorpe, who are very poor form, very lowly at the minute, at the bottom of the table, and get a win. And obviously it's not happened. They seem to show a bit of fight under Keith Hill now. But it will be a disappointing afternoon for Bradford, and the fan base they've got, they will be getting frustrated at at these results, and something will have to turn around soon. Derek Adams will probably be wanting to get to January as quick as possible to, get some new bodies in to try and turn it around.
Absolutely. As you mentioned there, Scunthorpe under Keith Hill showing plenty of fight. They deserve credit, don't they, for this weekend result, Marcus?
Absolutely, yeah. The fighting spirit's clear to see. 3 1-all draws and 1 loss in the league under Keith Hill now. So if you look at it from just 1 loss in those 4 games, then it shows that there is, they are competing. They're only 2 points from safety as well. Thought Bradford probably were the better side here, come out a little bit unlucky not to pick up the 3 points. But with Scunthorpe picking up points, it should instill some belief in the fan base and amongst the squad with January approaching. What limited action they'll be able to do in that transfer window remains to be seen. But with the likes of Oldham and Carlisle just above them, playing as poor as they are, while the gap is still 2 points, there's no reason for Scunthorpe fans to stop believing. Keith Hill's had a good record in the Football League before, produced a great escape with Rochdale in League One. So hopefully he can sort of replicate that at Scunthorpe. I think hopefully they should be able to take it pretty deep in the season, whereas earlier in the season we probably felt like there was a chance that they could be cut very far adrift with months remaining. So, yeah, it's a good fighting spirit from Scunny, and I think they can hopefully build on that and pick up their first win under Hill in the next few weeks.
Right, that concludes Football League World TV's weekend review. Thanks to Marcus, Ben, and any viewers that we've had joining us, and thanks to all those that have sent comments in as well. It's greatly appreciated. Anybody catching the show on Catch Up on YouTube, please do like, subscribe to the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Coming up later today, we've got the EFL Transfer Zone with Sam Rourke, and between now and then, take care.